was since the second half, really, how much they've really struggled. Charged with finding some stability from this guy.
Welcome back to the next episode of the journey of a grassroots rugby coach. And today's episode, as always, is brought to you by Bull and Bear Crew. Bull and Bear Crew offer a large range of men's skincare products. They offer them in 100ml bottles, so you can take them with you when you travel. They offer at-home bottles that you can use, and they also sell all their products in refillable pouches. So if you've got all nice bottles at home that you want to use, you can just use their refill pouches. They also have a toiletries bag that fits all your 100ml bottles in for when you travel, plus plenty of room in there for your razors, your toothbrush, and everything that you need when you go away. Check them out at www.bullandbearcrew.com.au. And today's episode is with Max Dominy. Max is involved with the Northampton Saints Academy. Max played a few different sports as a kid, but has settled on coaching, and we talked about that during the interview. We also spoke about finding what your superpower is as a coach and as a player, but more importantly, as a player. How do you use your new players that may not be as skillful as some of your other players? How do we promote skills and habits? How do we coach without actually coaching players? Encouraging good mistakes. And that was a really interesting conversation. He also talked about high tempo training that he does and how he uses fault ID and correct to help his players. And we also talked about decision making, halftime talks, and a hell of a lot more stuff. This is a really interesting conversation with Max. There's some really insightful stuff. So as always, give us a rating, give us a thumbs up, pass this on to anyone that you think can get any use out of it at all, whether they're a coach or a player or a coach in another sport. But as always, sit back and enjoy this episode with Max Dominy.
Your first name on the team sheet player, like his autonomy is going to look very different to that lad who it's his first session.
Yeah.
Now you could actually empower that first team player or that first name. Say, look, I want you to make sure that he has the best experience he possibly can tonight. Yeah. Because that's often the thing. Those new lads that rock up, they're really scared of mucking up and getting shouted at and being kind of in the spotlight as not knowing what they're doing. That's going to be their biggest fear. Yeah. Yes, there's kind of social pressures and things like that as well. So it's what can you do to create an environment where they feel safe to muck in and get them the most out of it.
Yeah.
Those three things. I'm going off on a bit of a tangent here, but like those three. So like I say, going back to those three things, that sense of autonomy, that sense of competence, and that sense of relatedness. Those are the three things that always stick in the back of my mind with every individual.
This episode of The Journey of a Grassroots Rugby Coach is brought to you by Bull and Bear Crew. Bull and Bear Crew is a range of men's skincare products. There is face moisturizers, face mist, body wash, beard wash, shave oil, and moisturizer. They come in a 100ml pack, aluminium bottles, so they're safe for traveling. You can use them check-in your baggage. They also come in larger at-home bottles. All bottles are refillable, reusable, and recyclable. You can buy refill pouches to refill bottles you have at home if you don't want to purchase bottles from Bull and Bear Crew. They've just been released. A great product, all natural, or vegan, tested on men, not on animals, all that good stuff. Recyclable, reusable, and refillable, so you can use them over and over and over again. Go to their website, check them out, www.bullandbearcrew.com. Place your order. At the moment, they're only shipping within Australia, but keep your ears and your eyes out to the website. They may be able to extend the shipping at some point in the future. Please enjoy this episode.
Dominy can't find it. That's a mighty shot. A mighty Mark Leicester.
All right, Max. So let's make a start. First of all, thank you very much for your time. Just for the listeners that may not know who you are, firstly, who are you? Where are you? And what's your involvement in the grassroots game?
So Max Dominy, based in Cambridge in England, and kind of my involvement within the grassroots game. So I do a lot of school stuff, like I say, so working in a school at the moment as head of rugby, and assistant director of sport. And then I've worked within the academy pathway for Northampton Saints. So that kind of takes the players out of the grassroots system and puts them into a performance pathway, which runs kind of two strands in England. So we have what we call the DPP, which is a developing player program, and that runs from under 14s through to under 16s, and then across a club's geographical region. It's all regionalised in England in terms of the player pathway. We then kind of shrink that down from under 16s upwards, as it kind of whittles down towards those guys, which we're going to contract out. I mean, in terms of my involvement in the grassroots game, it's where the vast majority of my rugby's been, from playing as a mini and a junior to going off to university, to then coming back from my local team when I come back from university, and kind of as life takes in and careers kick off and things like that. After having a very brief stint of kind of playing full time, then going back into the community game for a little bit and things like that. So it's something that's kind of been a constant, really. And now just helping out with junior coaches and a bit like this, really, just chewing the fat and having conversations and coffees about how we can make it better.
Yeah, nice. And I think our academy systems work a little bit different here, but I think they're a good idea. We can talk about that as we go through. But no, that's good, mate. Thank you. So what got you into coaching in the first place?
Quite a funny story. So I was always quite, as a student at school, I was always quite heavily involved in the PE department. Rugby was always my kind of major sport growing up. I did play a number of other things. I'm still referred to by my group of mates as the failed centre forward. That's why I started playing rugby. But yeah, so I started doing that, and there was a PE teacher at the school that was a football specialist, and he had a year 7 rugby team, and he was basically quite honest. He said his knowledge of rugby was next to non-existent, and I was a year 11 at the time, so I'd have been 15, 16, and he kind of said, "Look, can you come in and start coaching and just help us out a little bit with it?" And that was my kind of first introduction, really. And it kind of took on from there, and started doing more through the sixth form when I was doing my A-levels, and then actually went off to university to do a sports coaching degree. So that's kind of how I got involved there, by helping a PE teacher who didn't know much about rugby out.
Yeah, nice. And I'll circle back to that playing. You said you played a few sports as a kid. Did you find, and there's a lot of literature around this now and more that's coming out, did you find that beneficial, playing more than one sport as a kid, or?
Yeah, I'd say I did, mate. But I think at the same time it hindered me, because the way that the pathways were kind of structured at that time, I think it forced me to specialise earlier than I perhaps should have. So I was having to specialise kind of at the age of 15, 16, and it was kind of that pressure of, okay, well, I need to do this now because there's this opportunity that I want to pursue. So I think, yeah, absolutely, like early sampling is massive, and I'd encourage people to do as many sports for as long as they can. And I don't think, again, if we're looking at supporting grassroots coaches and things like that, I don't think anyone should put any pressure on people to specialise in a given sport early, because there's so many transferable skills.
Yeah, and even not just specialising in other sports, but specialising. Like, I've done a little bit of stuff around the under 13, under 14 representative age group stuff, under 15s. And kids change so much. Like, you get these kids that turn up and one year they're a winger, and the next year they turn up they're a lock, or vice versa. You know, the biggest kid on the field, and then in the off season he stops growing and everyone else catches up, and then all of a sudden he's a halfback instead of a prop. And so like you said that earlier, although I can see the benefits of some early specialisation, I think the benefits of not doing it potentially outweigh pigeonholing kids.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Like, we see it so much at the moment, like especially within the work within our professional pathway. You get lads rock up at 14 years old and they say, "Oh, I'm a fly half," or they say, "Oh, I'm this," or "Oh, I'm that." And it's within our pathway, we make a really big point of just coaching core skills. Like, so when I speak to the parents at the start of the year, I say to them, I said, look, you will not see us in a training session look at how we attack off a 5-man line out on their 22. What you're going to see us do loads of is catch pass, contact skills, decision making, game understanding. Because, you see it, like we've got a lad in the first team in Northampton at the moment who's contracted as a tight head prop. He came into the academy system at 16 years old as a fly half.
Yeah.
So in the space of 3 years, he's gone from a fly half to inside centre to 8 to tight head.
Yeah.
So that's not even considering kind of and that's just one example, and there's so many of them. And actually, I think are we neglecting the ability to learn and develop these young athletes by saying at 12, 13, 14, this is your position?
Yeah.
There's so many examples. Like another one, Joe Hayes, the England tight head, who's kind of sitting on the bench. He's in the squad at the moment. Do you know what he did before he was full-time rugby player in Leicester?
No, it's probably a ballerina or something. Yeah.
He was an academy goalkeeper for Nottingham Forest.
Yeah.
Really skillful with his feet. And
Yeah.
how many, it's that coach's bingo, isn't it? Oh, you don't kick, you're a forward. You're thinking, hang on a minute. Like this lad is this lad's going to be one of the most skillful players here with his feet, and you're restricting him to do that through kind of social norms within the game.
Yeah.
Forwards don't kick, all this kind of. It's like let them go and explore, let them play, just develop core skills.
Yeah. Yeah, so you've got a tight head prop at the moment who literally has the ball skills of a 10.
Yeah.
Like what decent coach wouldn't go, oh yes, I'll take him. And if he's played 8, he's got the skills of a 10, a ball carry of an 8, and he can scrummage. Yeah. And like you said, like he's just I openly encourage my forwards to kick if they can. And if it's, like you said, why are we pigeonholing people anyway?
But it just gives them that dimension. Do you know what I mean? Like if you have a prop and you say to that prop, all I want you to do is just carry and carry and carry. Yeah. All they're going to be thinking is they're going to be eyebrows at 45 to the floor, and they're just going to wait for the contact to ride it. Actually, if you say, go and find the space, all of a sudden their eyes up, they're scanning, they're making more decisions, they're learning. Yeah. It just completely changes the dimension of what they do or what they're thinking and what they're seeing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. But we do have players I've got a few players that we just give them that one role to do, because when you give them that's what they're good at. If you overload them, so it's that knowing your players and their skill sets.
Yeah. It's that phrase, isn't it? What's your superpower?
Yeah.
What's your superpower at the moment?
Yeah.
What are you going to be better than anyone else at today? And it could be someone that just carries and gives you go forward, or get leg drive through the contact, whatever it might be. But yeah.
No, I like it. Awesome. During your coaching journey, we've all had disappointments along the way, and the coaches that tend to develop and stay in the game longer are the ones that take those disappointments, self-reflect on them, look at them, and pull good things out of them. Have you got an example of something like a heartbreak or a disappointment where when you've at the moment when it happened, you just went, "This is shit," and then when you actually stood back a bit and went, "Well, hang on, what did we achieve? What did we learn out of that? Was it me? What did I do?" Like that self-reflection and growth. And the reason I ask that is because as young coaches, I know when I was a young coach, it's really hard to do. And at some point, a lot of them get to that point and they just throw the toys out of the cot and they walk away and they go, "It's too hard." But, every coach I've spoken to, they've gone, "Yeah, this was a time, this went really bad. But when we went back and looked at it and reviewed it and reflected on it, we came out the other side better because we learned this, and this."
Yeah, I think the big one that stands out for me. So I kind of grew up playing for the same club.
Yeah.
Right away from when I first started playing rugby under 11s, and I was fortunate enough to kind of get offered the role to become head coach of that club. And I think for me, the disappointment or kind of the heartbreak, as you kind of described it, came from what I now perceive and what I realised to be a missed opportunity. And I think that's because it was kind of my first real opportunity to become a head coach. And everything else before that, it was kind of assistant. And, you know, this is someone's script and I've just got to look after my own area, whether it's backs, skills, attack, whatever it might be. And I think the reason why I missed that opportunity is I was so focused on what I wanted it to be. There wasn't that open and transparent conversation about what the collective wanted it to be. So therefore, I was driving an agenda. And now some people came with me. But actually, I think the missed opportunity came from creating something really kind of special together. And then that maximizes people's buy-in and enthusiasm. And if you get that, you're more likely to get positive outcomes, whether that's having beers in the bar after, whether that's people turning up religiously for training, you know, because this was a level where people weren't paid. You know, it was my local rugby club. It was Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday that they'd get off the building site at 6 o'clock and rock up for training at 7.
Yeah.
You know, so actually, I think for me, not in that first experience as a head coach, not actually taking the time to not just know my players, but know what their aspirations are with their rugby and what they want to get. Why ultimately were they there? You know, and it was all a case of, right, this is what I want us to do. Like the chairman's kind of said, this is the direction he wants us to go in. Like, this is what we're doing. And actually, I think taking the time to consult with them and get their own kind of self-determination as part of the fuel was a real missed opportunity. And that's something that I do regret. Like, I do wish I could go back to that point at the start again.
Yeah.
Because, you know, if you get people's buy-in and you kind of light the fire in their eyes right from the outset and you tell them what the journey is, like, they're with you. And that's a really, really special place to be. That's that kind of safe space where you're growing and you're developing, but you know it's in a secure environment where you can trust people around you and things like that. So yeah, I just wish I could go back to that first meeting again. That's kind of that's the disappointment for me. Is that what if, what could it have been? Now, you know, they're never going to be a Premiership side or anything like that, but you know, there's that element which, you know, I do look at it and think, hey, what could that have been?
Yeah, that's good, and that's good, mate. That's, you know, and we've all had those disappointments around appointments and getting roles we didn't, not that we didn't want, but we wanted another role and we got that role, and you know, how do we make the most out of it? Because at the end of the day, it's about the players. It's not about us. How do I make?
Absolutely.
Like, like you said, what does the collective want? And I think, especially in that head coach's role, you can get in that that space between what the board or the committee want and what the players want, because they might not align together, and then there can be some difficult decisions take place.
That's also the thing, mate. It's also the thing as well. Like, I think it's some coaches perceive it as a weakness for them to ask the questions, but actually, it's a really powerful thing for you to ask the right question.
Yeah,
you know,
nice.
like if you go up to someone and you ask a simple question of like, like what brought you here? Like, what brought you into the club? What brought you into training? They could tell you something which you didn't even know. It could be they had a relative that's on the honours board with 150 first team games or whatever it might be, and you don't know.
Yeah.
But actually, like you say, like just asking the right questions to getting to know them and getting to know why they're there and what they want to get out of it.
Yeah.
Is like, that can help you construct a formula to really create that powerful environment that we all kind of strive for.
Yeah, no, and that's really good, mate. And getting them, that's difficult too like I said, for some coaches that's difficult, especially like for us at the moment. We're getting a lot of new players come to the club, so like I try and make, every time there's a new player, I talk to them, and when you get 4 or 5 turn up on the same night, and then you try, it's just like, oh yeah. So sometimes it's just trying to getting organised, and but being honest with them as well, just going, mate, I want to have a chat to you, but I can't get to. Can we make a time Thursday or whatever? You know, everyone's, like you said, everyone's busy, everyone's working, and then coming to training and doing that. So no, that's really good, mate. What about some of the highlights that you've looked back on and reflected on?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple, mate. Really, like, obviously, being competitors. Obviously, something you think about success. You know, so I think back to like the first major success of winning like the national title. where I was injured, but then took on a coaching role at the university. And then actually we won at Twickenham Stadium. We were 23-5 down at half time, and we won 32-23.
Nice.
You know, things like that, those memories, like they live with you, and no one can take those away from you in terms of like on grass and tangible success and tangible measures. I think other things that you look at, you know, I still am in contact with the lads. Well, they finished school now, but when I first started teaching my first ever rugby team, I remember I started with them in year 7, and there was 4 people outside of school that played at club.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest of them were just, I'll give it a go. Like I played a little bit of tag rugby at primary school, and I'll give it a go. And we got to the point where we had 18 of them playing club rugby, and they're all still playing, and they all still play for the same club. And I remember it was, well, when would it have been now? It would have been, maybe a year ago. I bumped into all of them in the summer. They were just out and about in a beer garden, up to no good as they always were. But you know, just bumping into all those lads and seeing them, and actually giving them that invitation to the game, and they're still doing it, and all the memories that they've got, where they've gone on to like representative honours for like regions or counties, or you know, playing at university and made social circles that way. Like that, I think that's a massive success as well. So it's not just them playing, enjoying the game, but them have the longevity of enjoyment. I think that's massive.
Yeah, and I think it's something that we as coaches don't know. Not that we don't notice it, but it's really underrated for coaches. But it's massive. Like when you see that player or that person that you might have coached 10 years ago, and they see you, you know, they've gone on to the next level or whatever, and they see you in the street or at the game or something, they just stop and talk to you. You know, and or like you said, you bump into a group of them somewhere, or you get an invitation to something. It's just that, no, that's awesome, mate. And to be fair, most of the coaches I speak to, like they can pinpoint good results, but then they'll go, but it was when I got invited to our captain's wedding or a christening, or bumped into so-and-so on the other side of the world. And, you know, those connections that you make, especially with the way our game is, mate, you can go anywhere and bump into anyone and make those connections. So
it's the smallest network over the biggest space, isn't it?
Mate, I know, right? I know.
But that again, like I said, like that comes back to how we work with, or whether we make a conscious effort to work with the athlete or we work with the person. You know, that it comes full circle. Like ultimately, if you take the time to ensure that whatever they're doing is a positive experience for them, they're likely to come back. Now that comes for us as coaches. That's where the challenge is. We're actually, how do you create that for the masses? Like let's say you've got 30 people at a session. Like that's a skill to maximize the enjoyment of that session for every person. You know, that is the challenge. But it's like I say, I just think it's, people get so focused on like drills and this, and they're like just really kind of isolated stuff. Like ultimately, what do kids want to do, mate? They want to play, they want to have fun, like they want to chuck a ball around, and they want to learn. Like I still think honestly, like there is still a gap. Like we're going kind of much bigger picture. I think there's a real difference between core skill set of Southern Hemisphere to Northern Hemisphere players. And I generally think like part of the thing that helps you is one, your climate. Like it's so much nicer for you to go down the park in your normal weather. Maybe not in Melbourne where it's four seasons in a day, mate. But you know, you can go down the park and chuck a ball around. It's glorious sunshine and stuff like that. Like England, you're lucky if you can get a couple of months in a year where you can do that, and they just learn to be so expressive, and they're playing unstructured. There isn't a coach saying run around that cone, then that cone, then pass the ball once, and do you know what I mean? Like they just they learn, mate, and they explore and they have fun like that. I think that's a big difference.
Yeah, no, you're right. And I think too, here, because of the weather, and I mean, I know the UK's got a heap of other sports as well, but you know, in the winter, even though it's cold, it's not that cold here. You can be playing 2 sports in over the weekend. You know, we've got the conditions to do it, and you know, we've got a lot of open space, and you know, where our ground is, we've got a football field that side behind us. We've got 2 rugby fields, and then we've got an Aussie rules field. and all day Saturday they're just full, so, and kids are floating between the two and stuff like that. So yeah, it's keeping them involved, I think, is the thing, and getting them to come back. So just on that one, how, and you said there, like, you might get 30 players to a session, and you've got, especially at club level, you've got the player that's turned up that potentially never played before, can't catch a cold in the middle of winter, and he's turned up to play because his mate's playing, his mate's a first grader or a potential player to follow that pathway. So what do you look to do in your sessions to accommodate the development of the potential elite player and the development of the player who is just there to have, he's there to have beers with his mates? Because at the end of the day, this guy here that probably hasn't got the best skill set, he's going to go on and be the club president, or he'll be around the club for 100 years, and everyone will know him because he's the guy that marks the lines and does all the kit, and he's just you can just go, this guy's a rugby guy, so we've got to develop him and keep him in the club. So
yeah,
how do you keep them both involved and develop them during a session when you've got 30 players there?
One of the best things one of the first things when I started looking at like literature of coaching and things like that, which just stuck with me, which I would say is kind of right at the center of kind of my compass, is that self-determination theory. And it's something that's always ticking in the back of my mind. So it's basically within each player, you've got to look at their sense of autonomy. So how in control do they feel of their own behaviors and their own actions, or are they just getting barked at? They've got to feel a sense of competence that they can do what you're asking them to do.
Yep.
And then there's also then that element of relatedness, so they know why they're doing it. Now you can take those three things and you can apply that to your absolute gun player that's flying, that is the first name on the team sheet, and also that new player, and that sense of relatedness could be like, I don't know, you give them a t-shirt or an old Max shirt to train in with the club badge on it. Say, I don't know, it's cold out here, chuck that on, that'll keep you warm, like wear that, and all of a sudden they're wearing the badge and they feel part of the club and they're immersed.
Yeah.
Or you're getting someone to like look at, like someone just to check in with them throughout the session, or that sense of competence where, I don't know, you just get someone just to start a game of touch. You play with that one, you play with that ball, get them, so actually it's those micro skills as a coach where you're constantly feeding into those three segments for me. Now, again, like I say, that's different. Like if your first name on the team sheet player, like his autonomy is going to look very different to that lad who it's his first session.
Yeah.
Now you could actually empower that first team player or that first name. Say, look, I want you to make sure that he has the best experience he possibly can tonight.
Yeah.
Because that's often the thing. Those new lads that rock up, they're really scared of mucking up and getting shouted at and being kind of in the spotlight as not knowing what they're doing. That's going to be their biggest fear.
Yeah.
Yes, there's kind of social pressures and things like that as well. So it's what can you do to create an environment where they feel safe to muck in and get them the most out of it.
Yeah.
Those three things. I'm going off on a bit of a tangent here, but like those three. So like I say, going back to those three things, that sense of autonomy, that sense of competence, and that sense of relatedness, like those are the three things that always tick in the back of my mind with every individual. So like I could be there, like you could be coming to one of my sessions for the first time, and we could have a game block just to kind of loosen legs after warm up or whatever, just get the ball moving. And if I see you're stood out on the wing and you're not touching the ball, like that's something I'm going to address.
Yeah.
Because you're not quite related to that practice.
Yeah.
So then it's that observation skill as a coach. It's that observation skill. I think that's a part of it. I guess obviously it all depends on context. Just kind of smaller sided stuff. If you've got the coaching numbers there, can you assign a coach and just say, look, I want you to look out for so and so. It's his first session. Like if you see something, just like occasionally just pull him out and G him up and give him some praise, or whatever it might be. But again, it depends on people's context, doesn't it?
Yeah, and And it's really difficult. Like, it's really difficult for a lot of coaches to have that skill set gap between those players and make everything flow. Which is why, because a lot of coaches that I've spoken to, that's not the thing they struggle with, but it's the thing they're always conscious of. Is I've got this guy here, and he's not, for whatever reason, he's just not. So he's not going to be a superstar. You can tell he's not going to be a superstar player, but he wants to play. So we've got to get them going.
But it's that for me, ultimately, I'd say the difference between a good coach and a great coach, if you're looking purely at technical tactical, like let's park for a second coaching the whole person. If we're looking solely at the athlete, like I think the difference between a good coach and a great coach is their ability to fault ID and correct.
Yeah.
I think the quicker that a coach can do that accurately makes them more competent in that given area. Like, I'm not talking about people management, man management, personal skills. I'm not talking about anything like that. I'm talking solely about that coaching element. So actually that comes into it as well. And actually, if it's something which you don't necessarily need to actually correct tactically, that could be something as simple as, right, he's made an error on his first session. Let's not let him dwell on that. I'm going to chuck a second ball in nice and quick so the game just carries on.
Yeah.
So that there's those other things like that. So actually their ability to look at a fault and see why it's happening and then make the right decision off it. And now, especially in junior rugby, if we're looking at grassroots coaches at junior level, like those games can be so easily turned into stodge, where it's like knock on, walk to a scrum, another scrum. Oh, that ball's gone out of play. That ball's been kicked miles. And you spend so much time out of let's say a 4-minute game block in training, waiting for the game to restart.
Yeah.
So actually, like, coaches keeping those games really high tempo is massive to keeping people engaged and keeping people moving.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a really good point, mate. And I know when we do our stuff, when we do our game-based stuff, there'll be 3 coaches and they've all got 3 balls, and that ball gets dropped, you throw, this ball's on, bang, over there. So they're not getting in that habit of like you said, we'll kick it out, we can have a walk and we can do this, or but I think it also encourages when you play that style and you coach that style, is like if there's a knock on, and my boys don't do it anymore, but they used to. They'd knock it on and everyone would stop.
Yeah.
You go, is that what you're going to do on Saturday? No. Well, what are you going to do? Because the referee might not see it. You play on till the whistle blows, and just getting them in those habits of, like you said, knocking it on. We play on till that whistle stops, or so we get. They're looking at instructions at training that they just keep playing until they hear us give them, this ball's, and that's not really an instruction. It's just balls over there on that yellow cone, or, whatever it is. So, like you said, get them to think and problem solve on the go.
It's problem solving on the go, but it's also ingrained in good behaviours. So, like, I generally think one of the core skills, or I say the core skills, one of the skills within a game where so many bad habits creep in because of training games is ball presentation.
Yeah.
Like, so many varieties to ball presentation. Like, in a game of touch, people chicken scratch like it's league. They do a figure of 8 between their legs if it's small-sided to keep numbers on feet, whatever it might be. But then when you get to a Saturday, the amount of times, especially at grassroots, where you watch games back if it's a senior team, and people are just lazy on the floor. And then you say, right, okay, well, how much time do you spend on ball presentation? We don't. Like, and again, it's those things like what good habits do you want your players to have? Because that's obviously why we train. Like, we train them on catch pass, we train them on tackle tech. Again, it's that fault ID corrects. Like, why, as a coach, why is our ruck speed slower? Okay, well, he's fallen on his back. He hasn't leg drive through contact. He hasn't worked on the floor. Therefore, our clear out isn't clean because he's got to tread over both of his hands and his back to get to the man to clear him. He's lost the race. Do you know what I mean? It's all those kinds of things.
Absolutely.
So games in training are a really good way of emphasizing a point you want to get across. And it could be something as simple as, right, we're going to get really good at ball presentation. That's all we're going to look at. We're going to make sure our ball presentation is really good so we can play as fast as we want to play.
Yeah.
And that's all you hammer. And you can hammer that. Once you hammer that for, a couple of weeks within games, and anytime there's lazy ball press or whatever, you turn it over. If it's obviously, you're not going to be as brutal with a set of under 14s or whatever it might be, but but as soon as you recognize that, people start to relate to that and say, well, hang on, no, that's not what we do, and then you're creating a good habit. So there's some things which you can coach without actively coaching it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like through
absolutely.
games, like, it's that big one, isn't it? Right. Okay, I'm going to have a rule here, and I'm not going to tell you what the rule is, but you've got to play. Like, that's the big one I do with early catch.
Yeah.
So I'll just get them play, and if they catch it in their chest, now turnover, play.
Yeah.
And then the early catch, okay, yeah, play on, great, nice catch, play on. Oh, okay, well, he did this, so I'm going to do that. That's a good, it's that thing, isn't it? Good behaviors, great behaviors, or whatever it might be. So yeah, there's so much you can do through games without having to purposefully or actively coach it in like a skill breakout or whatever it might be.
Yeah. So when you're in that game mode at training, and you're running those games, errors happen. Because it's an ugly game.
Yeah.
It's an ugly game, but it's a beautiful game, if that makes sense.
Yeah, beautifully ugly.
Yeah. So what's your principles or philosophies around errors in that training environment when you're playing that high tempo game? Because thank God it's changed since when I was playing, where if you made any error, it was like push-ups and this and that, and everyone just went, yeah, whatever. But that's all changed now. So what's your thoughts, theories, principles around?
Yeah, I mean, look, ultimately, like, I encourage good mistakes.
Yeah.
Like, if someone's trying to do the right thing, like, I'm all for it.
Yep.
And again, we'll go back to that idea of the catch. Like, if someone's trying that early catch, if they keep plugging away at that's going to make them better. It's the same thing with like footwork into contact. If you just settle right into chest on chest, like, you're limiting so much around that phase of play and then the next phase of play.
Yep.
So if you're trying to, whether it's your loose head, tight head hooker, or your outside backs, your higher number players, if really hammering in like agility before contact, ABC we call it, just ABC, agility before contact, put footwork on. Like, if you're constantly encouraging that and you recognize when that happens, that's the good thing. Like, in terms of errors, actually, if you verbally recognize good practice or good behaviors that you see, players learn off that. But in terms of errors, one of the things which it was about 18 months ago now, it was just as we were coming out of the pandemic, where basically England rugby, got to be diplomatic what I say in case it travels that far, this famous podcast. Like, we were so restricted on what we could do for so long in England. Like, rugby was like just sitting on their hands. Like, we couldn't get out and do anything. Like, we had this really gradual return to play, and there was a period of time where we could only coach players in groups of 6, groups of 5. Five plus the coach. And I said to the coaches at the time, I said, look, we've got a real opportunity to really get good habits in here. So I challenged the coach. I said, in our sessions, we don't say the term unlucky.
Yeah.
Because it's such an easy thing to go, oh, unlucky, play on, or unlucky, turn over here, new ball. But actually, if you think about it, you say unlucky when there's been an error. Now, that error, actually, if you break it down, has come down to either a poor decision or a lack of skill. And that's a learning opportunity that's missed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I actually say to coaches and coaching staff that are working, we don't say unlucky. Like, if you need that second to pause, like, yes, restart the game with another ball to keep tempo session high. But if you need that second to pause and think, okay, well, why did it happen? Was it their early catch? Did they not follow their hands through on the pass high to target, so the pass drifted off? Did they plant their heels, which is why they missed the tackle? Whatever it might be, but you take the time to process it. That comes back to fault ID correct. Process it. So the feedback that you give is based around the origin and the source of why there was that error. Because if you just say, oh, unlucky, play on, like, that kid's going to go, well, yeah, I know it was unlucky, I've dropped the ball. But that's a learning opportunity.
Yeah.
And that's where, again, like, if you're fortunate enough to be in a position where there's multiple coaches and stuff, you can say to them, look, I want you solely in this game block if there is an error, I want you to go and give them their feedback as to why on the run.
Yeah.
You know, don't pull them out of the session and tell them for 10 minutes that he didn't have their hands up to catch the ball. Just say, hey, look, early catch.
Yeah.
You know, because then you're making the most of those learning opportunities. You know, and then you have those points for feedback and say, Bobby pulled you out of that session there after error. Why did he pull you out? What did he say to you? He said, I didn't have my hand. I talked about an early catch. What's the benefit then of that early catch? And then you're cementing that, and then there's more coaching.
Yeah.
You know, so that's a big one for me. I think in terms of errors as well, there's a time to address it.
Yeah.
Like you say, like it's those behaviors. So like you say, if there's a knock on and players just start walking, you know, if you get into this habit in a training session where there's an error and you go, everyone stop, that's going to boil over into a game situation, a competitive situation. But if you just say, right, we're playing, come together. Okay, right. Talk to me what happened over there. Why do we think that happened?
Yeah.
Now that could be a team thing. I don't know, folding around the corner for breakdown, you were short of numbers because they just played around the corner. It could be, you know, they found space in behind because winger came flat. Whatever it might be.
Yeah.
You know, and then actually that's a skill as well in itself for a team or a group of players to identify a problem and find a solution. Again, that's something they can do in game. There's an injury, right? Everyone come in 30 seconds. What's our problem? How do we fix it? Ball gets booted right into Rosetta the stand off a penalty for a line out. You've got 15 seconds. Right, what are we doing?
Yeah.
You know, so I think actually it's those skills which you can then replicate into it as well. So yeah, I think in summary, like I say, I've gone off on a tangent again there.
No, that's good, man.
In summary, like I say, just don't say unlucky, like you're missing a learning opportunity there, and try and get them to use skills which they would have to replicate and utilize in a competitive situation.
Yeah. I use something similar, but it's not unlucky. I try not to say the D word. And that can be challenging. Don't run into touch, because what does the player do? Runs into touch.
Yeah.
So it's like stay away from the sideline or step inside or So that's some of the stuff I work on is trying not to use the D word. So I want to give them a positive rather than a negative. If that makes And sometimes it's like picking those little phrases like you said. But that unlucky, that makes sense to me, because we've actually had players say, why are we rewarding good luck?
Yeah.
Like, luck happens and you take it when you get it, but why are we praising that when that turn came off? Because it was just luck. It was the ball bounced the right way and it looked good.
Yeah.
But it wasn't through anything we did. It was just lucky, you know. So that makes sense to me now. What you've said is that take luck out of it.
But then also, if you flip it on the reverse, mate, there's also a learning opportunities when things go well.
Yeah.
So, like for me, if you say to a player, okay, when we were successful, what did we do?
Yeah.
Or what does success look like here? So again, let's go back to that idea that we talked about with ball presentation. Okay, if we're doing a whole session around playing with continuity and wanting to play as fast as we possibly can. Okay, lads, right, end of a game block, in we come. You're with your team over there in your session. I've got my team. Okay, when we were successful, what did we do? What were we doing when we were playing fast? You know, and then they're drawing those relationships and things like that. So it's the same kind of concept where it's not luck. It's them understanding why something was successful or not successful, whether there's a learning around their skill development, what they need to do, or what they need to keep doing more in order to get positive outcomes. Like, I think that's such a good question to ask in a session. When you were successful, what did you do? Because then they've got the ingredient. They know what the key is. So they know that if they're going to be successful, they need to work hard on the floor with their ball pres. You know, so then it's that kind of that verbal agreement, that verbal contract collectively. Okay, well, we want to be successful. This is what we have to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's putting it back on them to, like you said, identify and problem solve.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what do we do when we don't get fast ball? How do we fix that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it comes back, we spoke briefly before about that questioning around players So what's some of your questioning look like around, like we've talked about the skill development, but I'm really fascinated at the moment about halftime talks.
Yeah.
I've spoken to a few different coaches, and there's a few different things that have come up that I'm toying whether to go with or not. So I'm just interested in what other coaches' thoughts are on the halftime talk.
Yeah, again, kind of context is key, isn't it? Really, I mean, every coach has a general pattern that they follow.
Yeah.
I think if you're asking me what mine is, I always start with a positive.
Yeah.
Like I think I have to, because you're going to have a whole range of emotions coming into that change room. Someone who's, I don't know, not the ball on to finish the half and a try scoring opportunity, compared to compared to the second row that won the line out, get on an opposition throw before that phase to give us the ball. Do you know what I mean? And it's actually, if you just get people in and get them on the same page right at the start,
Yeah.
that just kind of decompresses everything and gets everyone on a level playing field.
Yeah.
You know, and you're not playing whack-a-mole with people's emotions and people's kind of psychological state.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, look, in we come. That first half was really good. Okay, we've got 4 scrum penalties against, you know, on their ball. You know, we've already got our bonus point try, whatever it might be, but
Yeah.
recognizing the positive that came out of that half. Okay, and then for me, it's asking people or kind of leaders within that team or predetermined leaders, what's their observation about what we need to do to be even better. And
Yeah.
again, it's phrasing that question. It's how you phrase it.
Yeah.
That's the thing for me. And for me, I tend to go no more than one either side of the ball, one thing in defense and one thing in attack, and that's our marker for the next 10 minutes
Yeah.
in the second half.
Yeah.
You know, and it just sets that tone, because sometimes if they do those things really well, like the amount of games that you see, whether it's you actively coaching or you watch on the TV, where teams just come out of the start of a half, either half, and their momentum just blows the game away, and all of a sudden they're 12, 15 points up, and they've got that momentum, and all of a sudden the team are fighting to get back into the game,
Yeah.
you know, let alone stay in the game. So I think that's the thing for me, because at half time, you could solve one of 1,000 things, whatever it might be. But actually, it's that positive to get everyone on that level playing field, you know. And that positive could be a bit of a, you know, a shit sandwich. If I'm being honest, pardon my French.
Yeah.
But it could be actually two things around a, you know, because if you're 50 points down at half time, do you know what I mean? It's gonna, and you're saying, lads, that was really good, and da, da, da. You know, you've got to find something within that, whether it's an individual's work rate. I don't know, your 7 still scrambles back every time. It could be recognising an individual positive, you know, to get people on a level playing field. Then it's that, what are you seeing? Because if you just tell them, they're not going to change anything. If you're asking them what they're seeing, they're going to tell you, because they could see something completely different to what you are.
Yeah.
You know, so then actually it's their perspective, because again, that's a learning opportunity. In 3 years' time, they're not going to remember that game.
No.
They might remember the result,
Yeah.
unless it's like a cup final or something, or like a significant game in their campaign, their program, and their schedule. They're not going to remember it, but actually, they will remember learnings of what they're looking for, what they're trying to see.
Yeah.
So I'd then go like one either side of the ball. Right, that's our fix for the first 10 minutes. So defense, I don't know, make it up. We want 2 in the tackle, 1 in the ruck. Defense.
Yeah.
I want 2-man shots for the first 10 minutes. Tackler assist, bail out. Tackler to feet, truffle through. Whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Attack, it could be, right, let's go 2 passes off a ruck. Let's move them around. So they've used their front row replacements. We need to move them around. Okay, so let's go 2 passes off every face. So they have a different ruck defense for the first 10 minutes in attack.
Yeah. Yeah.
2 things, really simple, real clarity. Let's go and make it happen. And then we'll assess. So there'll be an opportunity for people to reassess at some point within a game.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I tend to use it. Now, again, like I say, that's a general theme, and context is key. If you've got multiple coaches, there might be the need for them to just give some individual feedback and just say, look, have you noticed this?
Yeah.
You know, so they can then at another time feed that information in. But it's not a let's chuck everything in the mixing pot in a change room and everyone goes out for the second half thinking, what the hell did we just talk about? Everyone knows
Yeah.
what they're doing. Either side of the ball for the first 10 minutes. Let's go and rip in and make that happen.
Yeah. I think you made a good point there about, if you're 50-0 down at half time, don't take the piss. They go, oh, no, we're doing well, boys. Well, no, we're not.
Yeah.
Unless it's, clearly going to be a game that you're going into that, 50-0 at half time's actually really good because they're like, up here and we're down there. But of course the players know. The players know as well, and the other thing I think too is the play, especially at half time and in those stoppages during there, the players have got a feel for the game.
Yeah.
Like you'll ask, like I said, your game drivers, and they go, if we run this once more, we've got them. Like we've run it twice and we've done it, but if we run that one more time, we've got them on toast now. They're like you said, they've got a new centre, so we're going to run this move on them because he's not defending. So they're seeing what you don't see, but they also feel. They, last time that 12 tackled me, it was just so soft. I think he's done his shoulder. So that's getting that feedback from them as well. Yeah.
It is. It's that game feeling that that's massive, isn't it? And that could be kind of talk within units where actually you give players an opportunity to learn. So I don't know. Let's say, for example, you go into half time. Let's use the line out again for another example. Yeah. Let's say, hang on, right? They've taken 4 now off of us. They've nicked it. They've got up. They've competed. They've taken the ball away from us now. We know what the fix is. Give us another go.
Yeah. Yeah.
And actually, like I say, there's there's that feel where it's not just what are the opposition doing, but actually giving that opportunity to learn within game as well.
Yeah.
Like that. The big thing for me, like it's one of my personal kind of pet hates where it's a penalty, and all the coaches in uproar shout what they think they should do at that penalty, but all the coaches are saying something different. Like that's people's personal bias around the game and what they would do. Like I make a point of when it's a penalty, I deliberately put my hands in my pocket, so there's no way that I can influence what they do, because that's a learning opportunity, and that's them feeling, and they may justify, like you say, there's that feel. Hang on, well, we've gone from our 22, we're now on their 22, and we've done it in 4 phases. Like we're on top of them here. Let's keep our foot on the throat.
Yeah.
Instead of going, oh, points, like why? Like, let them make the decision.
Yeah.
It's mad. Like there's so much which
we really empowered our leadership group this year around making those decisions.
Yeah.
Like our captain knows that we never criticize any of his decisions he makes on the field. We might have a chat afterwards and go, so why did you make that decision? Because there could be a learning in that. And there was a couple of times this year in big games, we were 3 points down and we got a penalty in the 22, and he went, kick to the line. And like all these old boys go, take the point. And he's just gone, well, go to the line. And 2 phases later, we score under the posts. Or they're asking me, why is he doing that? I said, I don't know. They feel something out there that, they know the speed and the tempo and all that stuff. And at the end of like you said, you got 3 or 4 coaches, they're all giving him a different thing. Let them make that call. And if it's the wrong call, it's the wrong call. We learn. We learn. We look at it as a learning.
It's a learn opportunity. Yeah, massive. Like people aren't going to get.
Yeah, those learning opportunities. I look at it, and usually the first thing I'll say to a player is, in the same situation, are you going to make the same decision? And if they say yes, okay, why? Like you said, because they might see that the blindside winger's up, and I thought I could. So now we need to develop your crossfield kick a little bit more. If that's the play, that's fine. So we need to work on that. It's a skill thing, not a decision making thing, because you've seen it. So let's work. So by asking them, if that happens again in that situation, are you going to make the same decision? And if they say yes, okay, cool. Why? And if they say no, okay, why not? Because it's not always a negative.
It's also important for a coach as well to make sure you have those conversations.
Yeah.
right? Like let's say again, let's go kind of first grade example, right? So it's high pressure game, whatever it might be. Like 9 times out of 10, if a player makes an error which either costs the game or lose point scoring opportunity, they just want to park it. Like that's the first thing that they want to do. They want to park it, forget it didn't happen, move on. Like, I don't know, maybe go into the bar and just have a beer or whatever. But like I say, there's a learning opportunity. And then it comes for your skill as a coach is how can you draw out that learning?
Mm.
Like it would be it'd take the easy option out to see, Joe Bloggs in the corner of the clubhouse sat there sulking because he's tried a crossfield kick last play of the game when the clock's red and he's put it out on the full or whatever it might be, or there's no one on a kick. If you don't have that conversation, there's no learning.
Yeah.
So it's really important that as a coach, you take the time to, yes, plan, yes, actively do, but also then review what's happened.
Yeah.
And that's within your coaching team, but then also with the players as well, because that sense of feel
Yeah.
when they're doing, that can give you so much back, so much back in terms of coach. Actually, you know what? I think we can play faster, or I think we're not utilizing our set piece enough. I think that's more of a strength for us, or whatever it might be. Like they could just say something which completely changes your dynamic and your perception and your perspective. Now, yes, there may be some things which you might kind of disagree with, and then there's that conversation to find that middle ground and kind of justify your points why, whatever it might be. But your coaches need to take the time to interact with players post performance.
Yeah.
Massively, like that's so important. Even not even just at first grade level, mate, but like junior level as well, because that's such a key part of their learning and their growth and their development.
Yeah.
Like, what are you seeing? So therefore, in terms of what you're seeing, why are you then making the decision that you're making? Like it's a classic thing that we see all the time. Like someone makes a decision in a game. Okay, so hang on, where was the space then? Over there. Okay, so why is it you ran the complete opposite direction? Oh, well, I don't know. Okay, well, did you make a decision? No. Okay, so actually, what's your learning from that? Scan where the space is and make a conscious decision on the ball. Okay, go and do it next time you're on ball. Like that's a learning. Like if you don't engage in that process, like they're not learning.
Yeah. No, that's exactly right, mate. And that, like you said, it's the art of the question as well, and delivering it. And I think, especially as young coaches, is asking the right question and then shutting up and let the player answer it. Because I've had some, you'll ask them the question and they'll come out with whatever it was, and you just go, "Holy crap! I didn't even think of that." But like I said, then it just changes the whole direction of where, oh, geez, I didn't see that, or I didn't think of that, or and that just changes everything. So let the players have that uncomfortable silence and let them, because they, like you said, they know the answers.
Yeah,
They're just, I think a lot of players, especially younger players, they're scared to answer in case they're, if they're wrong, and the coach, tears them a new one. Where if they're wrong, they're allowed to be wrong, because there's that learning opportunity there.
but that's the joy also of coaching through games, mate, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like it's interpretation. Like yes, there definitely is a place for like isolated practice of core skills, like at stages of development, things like that. Absolutely, there is.
Absolutely,
but that's the joy of coaching through games. Like if you look at any position and you look at the best players in the world in those positions, no two players are the same. No two players are the same. So that shows that it is an art. It's not a science. It's not black and white. It's okay. Well, what are you seeing? Why are you doing it that way?
Yeah.
And that's the benefit of coaching through games. But what you said there about silence, mate, it's so true. Like so many coaches, especially new coaches, are so scared of silence. They feel like this need that they have to be talking all the time. And they have to be the one giving all the information. Or actually, good coaches just ask the right question, and they're then thinking. And they're coming up with the answers. Like it's that classic thing, isn't it? Like coaching bingo, mate. You're at a session. How many times will you hear a player say, okay, well, what do we need to do to be successful here? And they'll say, communicate.
Oh,
Okay, communication, like just like you have these like buzzwords, but they're not thinking about it. It's them not just looking at the what and the how, but the why.
yeah. And
that's where the learning is.
Yeah. And that communication thing, when we get new players to our club, if we're doing that, how do we make that better? And if one of them goes, our comms, all the older players just go, oh Christ. Because I'll go, okay, what do you mean by what do you mean by comms? What?
Yeah.
Because it may be the problem. Yeah. It may be the problem. But comms is such a
chat.
Yeah, okay. Mate. To who? To who? Who are you talking to? Is it we're talking and not listening, or we're not, or we're just all talking and no one's actually hearing what's going, And some of my boys go, oh God, here we go. We're having the comms chat again. Because my boys would go, we're not conveying to the center, or like they're really specific on it, because that's what we want. Because comms may be the issue. Yeah, it might be. Again, where's it breaking down? Is it our comms from the winger to the 9, or is it everyone's just yelling and no one? It just sounds like white noise. So
but again, mate, like that's the skill, isn't it? Like, and that's not just kind of in phase and in play. Now, in plays, like if you're a team that plays under a system or a pattern or a framework, whatever it might be, you're going to couple an action with a word, like whatever it might be. But actually, again, it's that skill to give, not just for coaches but for players as well, to give concise information, which is detailed, but in a concise way. Like I say, ball goes for a line out, right, lads, in we come. Like, this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
And that's not the line out call that's happening. That's not the move you're running off it. That's I don't know, winger and 13 to disconnect. We're moving to that channel.
Yeah.
Something so like giving information so concisely is a skill. And that's, and again, like when you get to kind of pathway coaching and things like that, everyone wants to speak because they feel they're at an audition. And then again, it becomes that white noise, which you sometimes get in senior environments as well.
Yeah.
When kind of competition takes over and the mist starts to come over and people aren't, ice cool in the head. Like the scoreboard, opposition numbers laid a shot on them, whatever it might be. Like that skill gets lost.
Absolutely.
It's just. But again, that's something that you can coach. You can coach that through your sessions without saying, tonight we're going to look at giving concise information to your teammates in the game. Like you can construct that where it's like Mr. Miyagi, isn't it? A Karate Kid. Do you know what I mean? You're getting them to do something which they don't know what they're doing at the time, but they're getting learnings from it.
Yeah. And it could also be even simple things like you say to your 12, if you're not getting, if you don't know what's happening outside you, carry. And all of a sudden the winger's going, why am I not getting the ball? Because you're standing there and you're not telling these people what's going on. So if you can identify where that system's breaking down, it's an art, it's a skill. So
it is, and I think ultimately wingers are becoming so much more important.
Yeah,
they're becoming so much more important because they've got the. Again, it depends how you play in system, but generally speaking, wingers will have the best overview of the pitch.
Yeah,
because they will be, if you're let's say like you're playing right on the touchline, if they're the open side winger, they can see the whole pitch.
Yeah.
They've got so much more time to assess what's going on. They can ID the space. They can ID the defensive picture. Like they've got real good information, which they can pass in.
Yeah.
Like it amazes me that, even kind of in this theme that where people talk about 13s being the defensive leaders because they kind of lead the highest, they lead the line speed and shut the space off or whatever it might be. Like, but that could be anyone. That's basically like a channel. That's a zone of the pitch that you're nominating. Wingers will be able to see, or whoever is defending on the edge, will be able to see what that picture is. So why are we not utilizing them more in terms of what they're seeing?
Yeah,
I think that's something within the game which is you know, it is. I don't understand it. Like, we talk about wanting perspective and seeing what the picture is and identifying space and attack or whatever it might be. Like, let's use the people that are going to have the best perspective of that.
Yeah.
Like, that's not the fullback. The fullback's barking at that first line, fold round the corner, numbers round,
Yeah,
stay
yeah,
square. You know, whatever it might be. That winger is the person on the edge that can see everything.
Yeah.
You know, I just think that's something that could be utilised a lot more, especially when you're looking more kind of, again, senior level or kind of a performance focus, really. But I guess for a grassroots coach, it's making sure you're asking every player, isn't it? What are they seeing? Not just going to your player, which you know will give you a detailed answer, so you can tick that in your session plan, whatever it might be. But okay, well, actually, you know, you've been out there. What did you see from out there? Or you've been in this position most of the time in the game. What are you seeing from the middle of the pitch?
Yeah.
You know, asking people what they're seeing.
Yeah. Yeah. I like it. I like it. Awesome, mate. That's excellent. I think the listeners will get a fair bit out of that. Just a couple just to finish off with, mate. Coach development. So we've got the education side of it where you go and you sit in the classroom and you get your level 1, level 2, level 3, etc., etc. But what do you do for coach development for yourself and for any of your other coaches?
I think for me personally, like, one of the things I do is I've actively got engaged with developing coaches. So I've started doing some work for England Rugby now as a coach developer. So that's like helping deliver those level 2s and things like that, and not being part of the course, because that gives me an opportunity to reflect. So when I'm delivering content, in the back of my mind, like, I'm processing and thinking about, okay, well, what am I doing? What does that look like for me?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I'm also then developing those coaching skills, but in another context. I'm not coaching the players, I'm coaching the coaches. You know, or kind of developing the coach in that sense. That's one thing which I found quite useful. Another thing which I found really useful, which I definitely would recommend other coaches to do, is go and connect with people in other sports.
Yeah.
Like, that is massive. Like, because ultimately, if you go and see a basketball coach or, you know, a football coach or whatever it might be, like, they're teaching the same game form as us or coaching the same game form as us. It's a territory invasion game. Like, you're trying to get somewhere to score. You know, like, in attack, you're trying to create space, create time. In defense, you're trying to reduce space, reduce time.
Yeah.
And actually, like, there's so many key learnings or transferable skills or practice design that you can get from those other sports. You know, because every sport has their norms, don't they? In rugby, lines of 4, pass ball up and down, give it to the group, they'll run back. Every club must do that. Like, every club. Do you know what I mean? Oh, we'll warm up our hands, we'll get our hands going. In football, when they do that warm up where it's those lines of cones and they do their dynamic and mobility stuff around the cones and just do it like that inside like a loop. Like, every sport has their norm.
Yeah.
And if you do what you've always done, you'd always get the same results. Actually going out there and exploring different ways of doing things and how you can do it is something I definitely recommend other people to do. And then apart from that, it's take the time to invest in yourself and your own coaching.
Yeah.
Like, I get it. Like, the vast majority of grassroots coaches, mate, are volunteers. Like, they give up the time. Like, they get the equipment out of the garage because, you know, the partner moans at them for having a bag of rugby balls in the hallway as soon as they get home, and you know, all that kind of stuff. You know, so and you kind of put the stuff back in the car. You go home but take the time to, like, invest in you. Like, if you're giving up your time to be there, so make it a beneficial experience. Like, reflect on why you're doing it and what do you want to get out of it as well. You know, that's the main thing now for me. Like, I do that when I'm in the car or I'm walking the dog. Like, that's my time where I process and I unwind and I decompress and I think about my session, like, the night before, or if I'm, you know, if it's over in kind of Northampton, which is an hour away from me, I'm thinking about it in the car on the way home and thinking, okay, well, was that successful? Why wasn't it?
Yeah.
Because that reflection is so important, mate. Like, grassroots coaches is a lot of times a thankless task.
Yeah.
But, you know, ultimately that's the foundation to the game that we love to watch on the TV. You know, without that, like, there isn't that pathway of players coming through or even those coaches coming through. You know, coach education or opportunities for coaches now is is so ripe. And I think that's one of the very few positives that have come out of the pandemic, that people have seemed so much more open to sharing and connecting now than what they were. You know, before it was almost like a sin for looking over the garden fence and seeing what they're doing.
Yeah.
You know, now it's a case of, hey, come in and have a look, come and learn. Like, we want to help people.
Yeah.
So yeah, just investing in yourself and making sure that you're getting something out of it as well is what I'd say. Because otherwise, as a coach, you're just going to run yourself into the ground and you're going to burn out ultimately, which we don't want.
No.
You know, so make sure you know what you're getting out of it and what your kind of higher purpose is for that. You know, even if it's something as simple as an under 12s age group and you're doing it because your lad loves playing and there's no one else that's coaching. You know, but know what your why is. I think it's a big one, because if you lose sight of that, then it becomes cloudy. But if you're someone who knows your kind of, well, it's your coaching philosophy really, isn't it? That's kind of what we're getting towards. But if you know why you're doing it, you're then authentic. And if you're authentic, then you're much more relatable to people. And you build those better relationships and all those great things that then come from that within our game is what I'd say.
Yeah, nice. Mate, last one, I'll let you go. To think back to that first sort of coaching experience that you had, if you could go back in time to that first year that you were coaching, what advice would you give yourself knowing what you know now?
Not everyone's wired the same way as me.
Nice.
You know, I think if I look back to my first few sessions, I'd either set up activities or games or things like that, which I found enjoyable. And I would coach, and I'd coach people in a way which I would be able to relate to. But actually, like, that's not a skillful coach. Like, a skillful coach is looking at the group in front of them and how can you get the most out of them. Now, that's going to need you to adapt how you pose a question. That's going to need you to adapt maybe how you design a session. That's going to need you to adapt how you give feedback. You know, but actually, it's not one. So, you know, don't revert to type. Don't just do something because you did it and it was enjoyable or it's successful. Look at the group and what do they need, but also, just importantly, what do they want as well? You know, like if you're coaching a 15, let's say, like a 5th grade team, and they rock up and you say, right, we're going to do a Bronco, put the ball away, thinking like, you know, they might just want to turn up, train once a week, have a game and have some beers. Like, but unless you ask that question, you're not going to know, are you? So look at what are the players' needs and wants, and everything goes from there.
Those 5th graders aren't coming back next week.
Nah, not if they've done a Bronco, mate. They'll need a defib, mate.
You're dead right, mate. I used to coach stuff that I used to like doing. So thank God all that's changed.
It's those YouTube coaches, mate, isn't it? I saw this on Twitter. This will be great for my session tonight. They don't need that, mate. Like, they don't need that. Like, think about what they need.
There's a place for it, and I've got some good stuff off Twitter and YouTube and stuff like that. But it's also being able to look at it and go, hey, how can I use it for the team that I'm coaching? How do I progress it? If they can't do that skill, how do I regress it? How do I, you know, I've seen plenty of coaches. Context
is key, isn't it? Context is key.
And I saw a coach one day setting up this drill, and I went, oh, you've seen that on YouTube. And I said to him, and it was just a simple passing drill, and he had this target and all this type of stuff. And I went, 80%, it was under 14. So 80% of your kids aren't going to be able to hit that. And he goes, oh. I said, so what are you going to do? What do you mean? When the kids can't hit that, what are you going to do? Oh, I don't know. I said, mate, you've seen it on YouTube, and I get the concept of the drill, but it doesn't work for the kids you're coaching.
That's the thing. But like we said there, that comes back to that idea of connecting, but then also reflecting and processing. So like here, like there's stuff in this conversation which, as I'm saying things, I'm thinking in the back of my mind, like, okay, actually now I'm articulating that I hadn't spent much conscious time thinking about that. You know, so you have those reflections and processing it, whether it's a video of Twitter or whatever it might be. But like I said, like you just kind of, or coaches investing in themselves, you know, to make sure that they're getting the most out of that environment that they're working in. Like they do it in their professional life, they do it in their family life. Like why not do it in your coaching life just because it's voluntary on a Sunday morning or whatever it is? Like, you know, they'll still kind of value your work and what you do and take the time in it.
Love it, mate. Love it. Awesome, mate. This has been fantastic. Again, thanks very much.
Yeah, it's been good, mate.
Thanks for your time.
No, it's been great to chat and connect, mate.
Move off their own ball. That is monstrous.